Hello, my name is Victor. I just wanted to make sure you had a name to face comparison as my group probably already introduced me, but I'm not actually there present with you in the room. So, where I'm going to start in this presentation is I'm going to continue our talk on critical literacy by talking about the third process of critical literacy. I'm going to go ahead and talk about focusing on socio-political issues. It's very important to cover these kinds of things in the classroom because it's training students to analyze texts that have huge cultural and societal impact in a way that's very intellectual and that will get them to see more than one dimension. It will expand their background knowledge and actually bring their background knowledge in and cause them to consider texts through different perspectives by training students to use critical literacy on sociopolitical issue texts. So, what is a sociopolitical issue? I have it here for you. They're broad issues that face society. They're examined through the scope of power, of class, of race, of privilege, of language, and of educational level. So what that boils down to is that they're issues that impact everyday life for everybody in the society, regardless of what society you're studying. You need to look at the power structures in these texts that focus on sociopolitical issues, meaning what groups have power, what groups do not have power, why is there a difference in power between the groups. You need to look at class. Is there an economic class difference in that society that you're examining? If there is, why is it? What is the nature of that class difference and how does it affect the members of each class? Race, you need to look at different kind of racial relations depending on the diversity of where you are studying. You're going to have different types of text and understanding with that. Language, if there's multiple languages in the society, that can create potential conflict, or it could be worth discussing the role of language in being understood and understanding between different cultures. Education level as well has to do with, it's kind of related to class a little bit. It has to do with understanding how different educational levels will impact how an issue appears to people. So knowing what their educational background is may affect how a certain person views a problem or situation, and teaching your students to identify this from multiple perspectives will make them a much stronger person at analyzing sociopolitical issues. A lot of these issues are tough to discuss with the class because things like power, class, race, and privilege are very tied and anchored to a student's identity. Students in upper grade elementary, middle school, high school, their identity and why they're there is often justified by saying, my parents got me here. My parents either worked hard or whatever have you, and they got me to where I am here. They don't really look at it from the scope of societally, I had some kind of privilege which placed me here, or societally, things didn't work out which placed me here. So teaching your students to start looking at these issues is better used through literature. So rather than having students immediately go introspective, using a text that involves a lot of these themes, such as To Kill a Mockingbird, to analyze how the different characters function, what level of power they have, what class they're in, what race they are, if privilege is present in their life, what language they speak, and what their educational level is, can help students begin to identify these themes in their readings. So the overall goal of focusing on sociopolitical issues with critical literacy is to make all students understand how power shades their own background knowledge and can affect how they process and perceive information. So another thing that this accomplishes by having students look into sociopolitical issues deeper than just the text is it can make subject areas tangible and living. Current events are changing constantly, and having students that can analyze and look critically at what's going on and assess different perspectives on an issue can make them so much of a stronger person as an adult, in that they can understand different perspectives and they are not so vulnerable to misinformation or stereotypes or other kinds of damaging plagues on a society. So that's pretty much looking at focusing on socio-political issues. What we're going to do next is a quick check for understanding. Now, I'm going to have to run around the screen here a little bit because I'm blocking some of your text here. But I'm going to start reading up here. The question I want to ask and have the class do a small discussion, come to an agreement on which answer is the most correct, is the goal of critical literacy in examining socio-political issues is to make students, let's see, is it A, to make a few students understand how power shades their own background knowledge and influences how they understand information? Is it B, to make politics interesting? Is it, let me run up here. Is it C, to make all students understand how power shades their own background knowledge and influences how they understand information? Or is it D, because why not? Take a moment, discuss this. I'm going to leave a brief pause here, and I'm going to ask either Anamacio or Connor to pause the video while you talk about it. I'll be here. Okay, so ideally where we got is to the correct answer. I'm delaying here in case somebody didn't pause the video, but I'm assuming we're good. We got that pause on. So the correct answer to this is C, to make all students understand how power shades their own background knowledge and influences how they understand information. Also goes into how they perceive information. It's like the lens they wear to the world. To make students identify that lens and be able to look at it critically will help them to remove the lens and use all of their background knowledge in a more objective way to observe world events and happenings, which is, again, a good goal for critical literacy. So, the fourth process is taking action. I'm going to have to run around the screen here again for you. So we're going to talk about taking action. But first, let's take in this picture. What do we see here? We see what looks like a mentor figure and 3 young people. Volunteers written on their shirt, and their shirts match our PowerPoint. Isn't that a nice aesthetic? So these are students actively getting involved in their community and doing a volunteering event. So let's talk about that a little bit. I'm going to go down diagonally here. Students trained to view socio-political events through the lens of critical literacy are much less vulnerable to propaganda. Especially in the current day, I don't have to tell anybody that there's a lot of information out there that's not necessarily true. There's biases to information, there's slants to information, especially when it comes to politics, global events, or things that affect a large population. There's all kinds of slants that can be applied to it. And students who are used to examining the source of their information, looking at the motives behind that source, why they might put such information out, and also looking at the different perspectives that are being covered in the sources, will make them less vulnerable to falling for that propaganda and potentially spreading misinformation, or worse yet, using propagandized imagery or ideas to drive their future voting decisions, voting behavior, or societal behavior. Students who are trained in critical literacy are generally more engaged when they get out into the civic world. They're more engaged in active citizenship, and that ranges anywhere from local politics all the way up to national elections. So students also can develop a hunger to take action in their society if they're trained to look at texts and examine current events through other people's perspectives. Taking action, however, is not something that comes innate to the student. It's something that has to be modeled by teachers using modeling tools that adults use to solve problems. So, what does this mean? This means that rather than telling students this is a bad issue and stopping it there or doing a small discussion, adults, and by that I mean teachers, can go ahead and let a student know what the process is for either securing funding for a program that will change something in their community, petitioning lawmakers, and actually actively reaching out to Congress people. or even just taking steps to contact volunteer organizations that are involved in causes that they believe in. So that's a form of modeling that teachers can use within their subject areas depending on what issues being covered to get students an idea of how adults are ideally supposed to approach solving problems. Taking action also requires teachers to build their students' capacity to take actions by themselves. Giving students a prompt and then providing the tools to then use that prompt to go out into their community and create change is going to, much like any other subject, is going to give them the tools necessary to then apply the knowledge of critical literacy to looking at causes and then going out and changing their community. I want to conclude on critical literacy that students who attain that thirst for civil engagement, they'll be compelled into action to solve problems throughout their adult lives. A student proficient in critical literacy may go on to shape their community and possibly even change the world. It's a matter of questioning what's around you, questioning why you see things the way they are, and using those questions to expand your background knowledge on what you already have and explore new avenues of problem solving on a societal and potentially global scale. The concepts from Chapter 6 are applicable to all subject areas, so I want you all to take a moment to consider how critical literacy fits into your chosen area. Once again, Animacio, Connor, whoever's by the computer, go ahead and give it a pause. I'll wait. Okay, I'm assuming they paused it there. If they didn't, that's cool. You can still pause it anytime while I'm talking. I just want to make sure that everybody had a chance to discuss how in their subject area they could apply critical literacy. That's my conclusion here for everybody. The rest of the presentation is up to Connor and Animacio. I leave it to you guys, and thank you all for your time, and thank you for all your flexibility of having me here on a screen. All right, everybody, enjoy the rest of the presentation.